Believe it or not, United States vice presidents are actually tremendously important in US politics. More than you would think. Their influence and the things they actually do are far greater than their official responsibilities. Wondering what we mean? Well, let's quickly learn the VP's true role in the US in just 5 minutes. Alright, so quick 10-second civics review. In the United States, you probably know we have 3 branches of government. We have the legislative branch, we have the judicial branch. VPs are part of that 3rd branch. They are executives. And these VPs come from all walks of life. We've had wealthy investment bankers, we've had VPs who were Nobel Peace Prize winners, we've even had army generals. But the list doesn't end there. We've also had VPs who were charged with murder. We've had VPs who had assassination attempts on their life. So with this wide range of backgrounds, what are they there to do and what have they actually done? Well, first let's look at their official duties. These are the ones mandated by the Constitution, by law, and there are 3. The first is they break Senate ties. They actually preside over the Senate. If there's a tie, they'll cast the tie-breaking vote. And believe it or not, this has actually happened over 200 times in Senate history. The second is they tally votes from presidential elections. So they're actually the ones who are officially designated the responsibility to tally up the votes and announce the next president. And 4 VPs announce their own victory through this process. And finally, they assume presidency when needed. So this can happen in the case of the president's death. We know that this happened when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, but this can also happen when the president is incapacitated or when the president resigns. Regardless, their official responsibilities are tiny relative to the actual influence the vice president has. And so when we look at the actual role that the vice president has played in history, a couple of things they've done. The first and one of the most important is they're a trusted advisor to the president, more trusted than a lot of their other advisors. Here's the reason why. Before the vice president is even selected as part of the president's campaign process, they go through this extensive vetting process, the first of which is involving a selection committee. And so each presidential campaign does this a little bit differently, but each of them will typically poll and select areas the president is trying to win. Maybe it's favorability in a specific region. And that's just the first part of what will inform who gets selected in that vice president role. The second is really an extensive look into the vice president candidate's background. And so they will look at every single part of the vice president's background. If they find anything, which they probably will, it's because they've gone through your tax returns, they've gone through your public speeches, they've looked at your voting records, they've looked at, even details of your personal life and literally anything else they can find through extensive interviews and through extensive background checks. Now keep in mind, all of this is just to be able to campaign with a president. This is before they even get to the White House, and that's where they get their in-office responsibilities, where the vice president is assigned 2 very important advisory positions. The first, they're a member of the presidential cabinet. And this is a tremendously important role. These are departments that oversee trillions of dollars, literally thousands of billions of dollars. And some of the most important functions of the executive branch are managed in those meetings. The second is they're a member of the National Security Council. This council really does 3 things. The first is national security, it's in its name. The second is military affairs, which are obviously very important. And the third is just general foreign policy, which will dictate, of course, how the United States is seen abroad. Now, the second influential element of a vice president is their appointment in leading special projects. We don't have to go far back to see these special projects and how they've been influential. In 2020, we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and as many people know, Mike Pence, the vice president, was chosen to lead the administration's response to the pandemic as the spokesperson, along with coordinating with the states and allocating federal resources to the hardest hit areas. Now, before that, we had an initiative called Reinventing Government. This is an ambitious restructuring initiative led by Vice President Al Gore, and what he did was he lobbied for it on public television. He did research and drafted hundreds of recommendations to lower the personnel costs of the executive branch, and he used this credibility actually to influence foreign policy. Before that, we had a VP literally reinvent the VP role. Now, this is Vice President Walter Mondale. He met regularly with the president, Jimmy Carter, to advise on cabinet selection. He convinced the president to formalize an expansion of the VP role, his role, and he led high-stakes peace talks, and all of this set the precedent for future VPs. And that brings us to the third part of a vice president's influence. They are a high-profile representative of the United States in global affairs. And there are many examples in recent history. Mike Pence worked on denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, religious relations in Indonesia, refugee settlement in Australia. I mean, Joe Biden weighed in on military intervention in Afghanistan, NATO-led intervention in Libya, set aid policies for Ukraine. Dick Cheney was an advocate for the war in Iraq. Al Gore met with Russia. And these are just a select group of examples. Now, who knows how many stars would be on this map if you included the indirect impacts of a VP's direct foreign policy. Their global impact is just tremendous. But their most important role might actually be in DC at home. Because with all this influence, public policy experience, getting to know world leaders, there's no wonder, maybe the most important part of it all is there's a 1 in 3 chance that a vice president will become a future president. Now, if you got this far in the video, thank you. Love to see engagement and hope you found this useful. Now, 3 things we'd love from you. First, drop a like. 2 seconds means a ton. Comment, let us know what you want covered next, because we will cover anything, and subscribe. It's the best way to show us love. You'll know when we drop our next breakdown. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next breakdown.